Okay, guys, welcome to the Dan Hooker podcast. This is episode 1, our very first episode. It's good to be have a show and be back on the air. I'll give you a quick explanation as to what we'll be focusing on this podcast. The first half or the first half of the show will be focusing more on the international side of things. What's going on with fighters from this area, and the UFC. Things are happening internationally. There's a lot going on, but the main focus of the show, or the second half of the show, will be focusing on the local side of things that are happening in the local area. In Australasia, I feel like we have one of the deepest talent pools in the world, and there's a lot of fighters that get overlooked in this pool. In New Zealand, in Australia, in professional MMA, there's a lot of shows that just happen and they get passed by, especially on the local circuit. So not just focusing on MMA, but focusing on combat sports in general. I'm at a fight show every single weekend. I see with my own eyes some of the best fighters in the world, and competing in King of the Ring and Art of War in our local shows in New Zealand. And the shows happen, and I feel like the fighters just don't get that recognition that they deserve. So yeah, that's kind of why I started this. I'm giving the fighters that are in our area doing well kind of a platform to showcase themselves, and I can use my name and my platform to get those people more eyes, to get them, international people taking notice of them, getting international promoters to take notice of the local fighters from this area, and hopefully get them opportunities on these international events. So first things first, let's get into it. The international events, where the show go down in Las Vegas. Ratchet Smith, that was the main event of that card. I'll have a quick look through. First fight of the night, Mallory Martin. I want to congratulate Mallory. I actually met her when I was training in Denver. And then she won the Tiger Muay Thai scholarship the same year I did. So I believe that was 2015, 2016. We're at Tiger Muay Thai together, and she was just a grinder, man. She was one of the hardest workers in the gym. She's there every session. She's working hard. So I was stoked to see her get the win, really. Hannah Cyphers, she's a tough girl, tough striker. Mallory gave me a few heart attacks in that first round, getting dropped multiple times, but she managed to scramble back. The classic, Cyphers just kind of gassed out, looking for the finish, trying to put her away. And Mallory's tough. She was able to weather the storm, come back, and get the submission. Who else we got? My boy Neil. This is one of the hardest fights for me to watch personally. Robbie Lawler versus Neil Magney, because I'm a huge Neil Magney fan. I actually met Neil. I met Neil when I fought on the Auckland card. He was one of the other fighters on the Auckland card as well. When I made my debut in 2014, he fought, and we kind of had like a quick interaction there. And I followed his career ever since. And he always struck me as one of the hardest workers. He's actually the reason that I went over and trained in the US at Denver, at Elevation Fight Team, because he just was one of the hardest workers in the gym. I knew that he was always training and always busy and always looking to improve. And so I was also like that. So I saw a lot of characteristics in Neil that I saw myself. So I thought, man, I'm going to go and see what it's like over there and train with Neil. Neil actually put me up at his house. So me and Neil lived together for a few months. And I got to train in the US, train in Elevation Fight Team in Denver in altitude, and learned a lot from that experience, and was exposed to a lot of international talent and a lot of international fighters. And I feel like it was a big growth step for me and a real eye-opener for me in my career. And he was fighting my boy Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler, I've been following him since I first started watching the sport for a solid decade outside of the UFC, when he was fighting in Strikeforce and other promotions versus Melvin Manhoff, Scott Smith. So I've been watching Robbie for a very long time. So that was I was actually at Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit. That was I was live in Las Vegas watching that Condit Lawler fight. So I've been in there. I can say hands down, I've seen fifth round Robbie Lawler live and in the flesh. And he made that crowd erupt. So for me, that was a difficult fight to watch. So I'm glad my boy Neil was able to get the victory there. He was able to nullify the striking of Robbie in that fight. He was able to shut him down. He's a long guy, rangy guy. Neil is deceptively strong. You know, people, I guess it's like me, people see that you're skinny and they think that they can kind of overpower you. But along with that, you know, long frame also adds a lot of leverage. You know, you don't have the muscle there, but you have a long lever, so you can use a lot of leverage, so you don't have to so much focus on your strength. And so Neil was able to just shut him down, wear him out, and get the victory. So hats off to my boy Neil. Congratulations, and a very good night for Elevation Fight Team with Mallory getting the win, and also Neil getting the win. Main event, Rakic versus Smith. From what I'm seeing, it was just, you know, Rakic was the more physical of the two. He was able to, you know, Anthony's a bit of tries to get in his opponent's face and bully him a little bit. And generally in those kind of fights, when you have a bully versus another bully, generally the more physical of the two, the bigger, stronger bully generally gets the job done in that kind of contest. So, yeah, I was a bit surprised, you know, but that's kind of Rakic making a name for himself, beating a top 5 fighter, and, you know, the division's wide open with John Jones retiring. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see him progress his career. What do we got coming up? There's another fight show this weekend, I believe. We'll have a quick look. The Overeem Saki. I'm excited to see Overeem. I haven't watched this Augusto Saki so much. I can't say. I remember who else we got. OSP. Oh, this fight's been Alonso Menfield. I believe this fight's been rebooked. I think one of them or their corner failed for coronavirus. So it's good to see this fight get rescheduled. First fight of the night, Brian Kelleher. That's my boy, Brian Boom Kelleher. I'm excited to see him. He always brings it. Very game. Can't say I've seen his opponent fight too much, but there's a few names on that card. I'll definitely be tuning in. Oh, if that's another reminder, the Fight Circus event. I think that went down in Bangkok last week. So I don't know if you've seen it, but all the fights got uploaded. I think it was on, I'm not sure what website. Camp Soda was on live, but then it's been posted up to YouTube or on their Facebook page. You can catch all of those Fight Circuit fights. And that's my boy, John Nutt. So Full Metal Dojo has been around in Thailand for a very long time. And it is, I can say hands down, the most wild live fight show you will ever see in your life. John Nutt is a heck of an entertainer. He does the ring announcement. I actually was at a show in Bangkok. I was at one of their shows. One of my boys was fighting on the card. And I think there was a late replacement, like on the day, there was a late replacement. So he jumped in. He was doing the announcing for the whole show, announced himself, whipped his shirt off, fights the guy. I think he rocked him. I think he got stopped with strikes. He got knocked out. He puts his shirt back on and he continues announcing for the rest of the night, full of energy. And I was blown away by that. The other show that I was there for, Full Metal Dojo, so Fight Circus, was on a cruise ship. I went there for Kai Kara France's fight. So we were in Phuket. We were training in Thailand at the time. And Kai fought, I can't remember who he fought, but it was on a cruise ship. They docked a cruise ship in the Phuket harbor there. We all went down to the harbor, got on the cruise ship, and spent the night on the cruise ship. And it's an entertaining event. That one was pirate themed. So he was John Nutt was fully dressed up in pirate. All the doctors, referees, they all had like pirate outfits on. It was incredible to watch. If you haven't seen it, go and watch Fight Circus. They had open weight MMA, Leithway. There's I think there were two 2-on-1 matches. I remember watching one of them. So it was called two newbies versus the pros. So they had like two guys that are fairly new fight like a pro MMA fighter in like a kickboxing match. It's very weird. Oh, the intergender grappling as well. They had a man grappling against a female. So I don't want to spoil any of this Fight Circus for you. You have to go watch it. I'd say the announcer is probably the best thing. Watching John Nutt live in action, you can't miss that. It was a great show. So I do have a big announcement to make. I got a big announcement. It's been I think it's long overdue, and that's my mentorship program. So I'm announcing the second season, essentially, of the Dan Hooker mentorship program. So that'll be going down Saturday, September 26th at the Combat Academy. So I'm doing things a little different with this one. And the reason why I say that is because this one is more targeted towards school leavers. So the ages for this one will be 17 years old to 23 years old. As with the last one, no experience is required. And the reason why I'm kind of siding more with the school leavers is because I see a lot of young men, and I've had a lot of young men, friends of friends and friends of my own life, aggressive young men that don't find direction at the right time. They kind of lose themselves, and they get themselves into trouble, and they hurt themselves, and they hurt the people around them. So I feel like I'm looking for aggressive young men that need direction. So if you know anyone, you can point them in the right direction, ages 17 to 23. And because I was the same when I finished school, I was a bit lost. I'd finished school and I was unsure about what I wanted to do next. Lucky for me, it happened. Everything fell into place, and I not only finished school, but I, started training MMA pretty much straight away after high school, and fell in love with the sport. Found that direction, directed all of that aggression, directed all of that energy into something very constructive, and I was able to direct that aggression and not only have an outlet for that aggression, but build myself a career, and then I can, doing pretty well for myself. I don't mean to brag, but I'm doing all right for myself. I don't wear the nicest stuff, but I'll give you the wink. I'm doing pretty good. So what I need for you for the announcement, name, age, height, weight, sporting background, if you have any, martial arts history, if you have any, and just a picture of yourself. Nothing cheesy, relax, just a quick shot is enough. combat.academy.nz@gmail.com. If we got to have a link, I don't know if I got a guy that can put a link on the screen. That would be great. If there's no link, then I'm sorry, people watching. There's no link, guy. Dan Hooker mentorship program, school leavers mentorship program this year, and I'm excited for that. So September 26th, Saturday, September 26th. Man, I want to talk about the last one because that was a terrible experience. I think I'm gonna admit it. I think I went a little too far in that one. So they got there. I think it was 7 a.m. 7 a.m. A lot of people show up. There would have been 50 some people show up on the day to the last mentorship program. And it was a tough day. They got there and it was just strength testing off the bat. So you went through a strength test, which is like max pull-ups, max push-ups, as many as you could do. Jumped on the watt bike. So you go as hard as you can on the watt bike and we'll register the score, like the max amount of watts you can make. Then you did a beep test. So everyone had to do a beep test. That in itself is like a good workout. Then we did a 2-hour training session that I took, just running through a bit of skills and a bit of drilling work, just moving around. Could see who, what skill, the level the guys were at, and how quickly they learnt something new. Because there's one thing to be good, but if you're not open and coachable, then it's very difficult to show someone that is doesn't absorb things well. So that we'd spend a 2-hour session where I showed a bit of techniques, showed everything around, and see who could grasp it or who could pick it up. And then, because my gym's near One Tree Hill, I think it was it was a very long distance. I think it's like 7Ks, 8Ks to the top of One Tree Hill from my gym, and then the same thing back. And it was like a race there. I was tailing at the back, and I'd actually not run it. My training partner of mine, Saeed, he led the run, and he's quick. He's a good runner, so I had him lead the run, and I was just taking up the tail with our other coach, Rod McSwain. And I got like halfway there, and I was like, "This is further than I remembered. This is further than I had anticipated." But these boys took off like a rocket. They're all running, all sprinting. Got to the top, got back. And they're all telling me like, "Oh, I won the race. And I was kind of like, well, the only purpose of that was to get you tired for the next part, because the next part was my old coach Carl Weber. He came up from Christchurch and his gym, Universal Valley Tudo, and he put the boys through the meat grinder. He had them wrestling. He had them doing pads. He had them trying to. If you've ever met Carl, he's a very intimidating specimen to come across, and he's walking around the room. "If you're injured, get up. If you're hurt, get up. If you're injured, get off and go home," telling everyone. He's just screaming at them constantly, and he had them in like groups of 3 or 4, just rotating on one guy wrestling, and he's just walking around screaming at them like, "This guy wants your spot. This guy wants to take what you've got." And so, you could really see who was going to push. You could really see who was going to grind. And you could really see, who could dig deep and who wanted it more than everyone else. And the winners of that season, so one of my boys, he's still one of my boys, Aaron Tozumabto. He was an amateur MMA fighter at the time. He actually came over from Brisbane for the tryout. So he flew over to New Zealand for the tryout, won the scholarship, and then he moved his whole family over here and set up shop full time to make a solid crack at a pro career. And ever since then, he's been working hard inside the gym. He's now undefeated as a professional with 2 wins, and he actually has another professional fight coming up, and we'll discuss that a little later on. We'll come back to him a little later on, but it's good to see. It's good to see that, the first season was so successful, and we're able to find, one of the pillars of our fight team. He's great energy, and he's, one of the most helpful people and generous people in the gym. So I guess that's what I'm looking for in the next one is to another strong teammate that I can invest in, who's going to invest in me, and I can show you what I know, and hopefully you can build a very strong career for yourself and find some direction. Next segment of the show, we're moving on to the local fights. Not a lot's going on due to coronavirus lockdown, but there was a fight show in the weekend. TMT Fight Night down in Hamilton. The main event for that was Caitlin Tucker from Lucky 9 Gym versus Melody Downs, Team Downs. And each week, I'm also going to do a fighter to watch from our region. And this is this week's and our very first fighter to watch. That'll be Melody Downs from Team Downs and Core MMA. She trains down there in Hamilton. Long kicking game, strong clincher, and she stopped Caitlin. She actually caught a kick. I think it was the 3rd or 4th round. Caught a kick, swept her, and Caitlin unluckily posted her hand out, landed on her hand, and dislocated her elbow. So your elbow kind of pops out of place. Lucky enough, everyone noticed straight away. She didn't have to take any more damage than that. She was doing well, Caitlin too. Melody's a tough girl though. She's been on a real hot streak, and I'd say that's a fighter to keep an eye on here in New Zealand. She only fought again a couple of weeks ago in the main event of Art of War. So that was the first female main event of the Art of War show here in Auckland, and she fought Baby Nansen and won a decision victory there over Baby Nansen as well. So Melody's doing some very big things here in New Zealand, and when our borders open up, or she can get some international opportunities. That's one fighter I'd like to see compete, get some international opportunities, kickboxing, Muay Thai, and I'm excited to see. So keep an eye on her, Melody Downs. What else happened? So locally, there was another fight show in Australia. XFC Australia went down in Brisbane. It was a full amateur card, so usually they have a few pros on the XFC cards, but this card was full amateur. They had 2 bouts. watched, and they did very well. The lightweight title went to Trevor Sinclair, trains out of Integrated at Adrian Pang's gym over there. So he did incredibly well. I think he stopped his opponent in the third round. Light heavyweight bout went to Sam Dobb. So congratulations, hats off to those boys, and it's good to see fight shows over the ditch getting back started again. What's coming up here in New Zealand? I can see that XFC as well. So that was XFC Australia. We've got XFC down in Dunedin in New Zealand. That's coming up September 18th. So September 18th, that'll be happening. And there's 2 titles on the line there. So there's a welterweight title. Matt Vale, he's a fighter. You need to keep your eyes on Matt Vale. He's 10-2 as a professional, and he'll be fighting for the XFC New Zealand. He's a multiple-time XFC Australian champion. So he'll be fighting for the XFC New Zealand belt against Sean Redgrave. So that's the welterweight title. And also, my boy we spoke earlier, Aaron Tozumab will be fighting for the bantamweight title against Caleb Lally. And this is an exciting matchup for me. Caleb Lally, 6-2 as a professional, has fought in World Series of Fighting Asia. Very strong grappler, very good grappler. And this is an exciting fight because Caleb's coached by my old coach, Carl Weber. So this is a very exciting fight for me. This will be the first time that our 2 teams have crossed paths. And in all honesty, there's nothing but love and hostility. It's love and hostility. They're all one and the same. Me and Carl, I'm excited. This is probably one of the most exciting fights for me as a coach to come in and have a fighter compete against your old coach. I wish the boys nothing but the best. May the best man win. And why I didn't have a guest on this weekend is because I wanted to focus a little, get my stuff out of the way, get all my stuff, what I've been up to lately out of the way. So when I have to cover it every single week, it is a Dan Hooker podcast, but we don't have to talk about Dan Hooker every single week. So we're gonna get into a few of the fan questions. So I actually had my wife pick out the questions. So I'm gonna scroll through them all. There are a few here. So I'm gonna take my time and delve into these and see what we can get. So first I'm gonna start out with the Facebook questions. We'll get Facebook out of the way first. Cy Craig. Man, you've had a few wars lately. Thank you. And you just keep coming forward. It's so awesome to watch. I was actually at the Paul Felder fight. What an atmosphere. But how is the body after these latest wars? Good. The body is good. There's a funny thing in this sport is that no one is going to look after you but you. So, you have to, at the end of the day, you have to take good care of yourself. And so that's what I'm doing currently. I'm taking good care of myself, making sure that when I get back in the cage that I'm not putting my health, well, of course, this whole sport in general jeopardizes your health, but I'm taking the precautions I need to take that I don't put myself at any undue risk going forward. But, I'm back in full fitness work, back doing, drilling and wrestling with my teammates and, following all the protocols I can possibly follow to keep myself as healthy and safety as possible and to continue fighting for as long as possible. Isaiah Ellison, do you think you're accurately ranked in the division given your performance against the last number 1 contender? Hamish McNoll said, "What a stupid question." I don't think it's that stupid of a question. It's a good question. I was surprised. Not many guys lose a fight and don't fall a ranking, so that was very surprising to me. But it's just I could see the fan reception from that fight and how well everyone kind of reacted to that fight. It was pretty. It was pretty cool to see, even off a loss, to see your stock, stay at the level it was at, and you don't fall down in the rankings and an opportunity like that and a fight like that didn't set you back in your career. That's I'm very happy about that. Spencer Adlam, Who, in your eyes, in New Zealand, are the next up-and-comers to look out for, and are any of them possibly on the cusp of getting a shot in the UFC? Yeah, there are a lot of guys to keep your eye on, and pretty much that's the point of the show, is to talk about those guys and have those guys on the show who you should be keeping your eyes on, and growing the sport in and around New Zealand. That's really the purpose of the whole show altogether. Oh, Hamish McNoll back at it again. Carlos Ulberg. Yeah, I would say Carlos will be one of the next guys to get. If we're talking about guys that are going to get into the UFC, I'd say there are 4 that you need to keep your eyes on. Carlos Ulberg, light heavyweight, King of the Ring winner. He's definitely one to keep your eyes on. Undefeated. Blood Diamond is another one. You need to keep your also undefeated. I would think he's 3-0 in MMA, but 60, 70 kickboxing fights. Just won the last King of the Ring just passed. So if we're talking about MMA guys, Brogan Anderson and Matt Vale. So Brogan Anderson, I believe he's fighting on that XFC show as well. So yeah, he's fighting Cole Davids on that XFC. So that's another guy you need to keep. There's a lot of guys. So Brogan Anderson will also be fighting Cole Davis on that show. Those are 2 guys you need to keep your eye on. But Matt Vale is competing as well. So there you go. I've just given you 5 guys that you need to keep your eye on, and hopefully I'll have them on my show, and we can discuss that even more. What else we got here? Jordan Carville, rounding down to the nearest kilogram, how much does each of your gigantic warrior balls weigh? I think you'd have to ask my wife, but if we're talking about figurative balls, yeah, figuratively, they're quite large balls. Thank you. Brian Wilson, do you want a rerun Barboza, or is Oliveira the next fight? I would love to run that Barboza fight back, but at featherweight, I'm not ever going back to featherweight. I tell you that much. If I'm going one way, it's up. It's not going back down. So I would love to rerun that fight, but he's got to make it back up to lightweight. Then we'll put that thing together. Oliveira. Well, Oliveira's. I said his name after the last fight. Oliveira's a guy. I was willing. I was willing to fight. He's down in the rankings, but I was ready to earn my spot in the top 5 and go back. He's on a 12-fight win streak or finishes or something crazy like that. So I would have loved to get that one. But I think he wanted to fight a bit sooner than I was ready. So he's got another tough fight on his hands. Beneil Dariush, I think. Beneil's probably the most underrated guy floating around in the lightweight. Well, it's such like a stacked division. But I think Beneil Dariush is probably the most underrated lightweight that there is out there. So that's an exciting fight for me. Oliveira versus Barboza. Oliveira versus Dariush. Steve Smith, how the pay structure of the UFC should change to suit the fighters better. 50 and 50 is bullshit. For me personally, since I've been doing this, I've been in this a very long time. Been fighting professionally since 2009. Well, I didn't get paid anything then. Even though it was professional, I wasn't getting paid. But it's always been like that. So that's the only pay structure that I have known. It's not a normal job. So I can see your reasoning, but personally, I also kind of like it because it's like fighting. You're either all in. When you go into a fight, it's like sitting down at the table, playing poker and sliding all your chips across the table. We're not playing the long. Like when you get to the big dance, when you get to the show, it's all in. So when you're in that moment, going all in, you are 100% confident that you're going to get the victory there and get the win. So I understand it. But this is not a usual job. This is not a general way to earn a living. And to be honest, I kind of like it. I like that. I like the risk versus reward aspect of the sport. Ren Douglas Witchell, how do you deal with fear leading up to a fight? Any tips on how to deal with anxiety? Or maybe you see it as exciting. I'm interested to hear. Cheers. Good question, Ren. For me, well, anxiety. I don't really get any anxiety leading up to a fight. I think I'm a little bit different. I get anxiety when I don't have a fight. When I don't have a fight, that's when that's when everything else starts making me anxious. As soon as I have a fight, you get tunnel vision, you get focused, you can really harness down into what you're doing and focus on your fight. And for me, I don't feel any more at peace than when I'm in a hard training camp. I don't feel any more at peace when I have a fight to focus all of my energy on. There's no real time to feel anxiety. So I feel at peace. I feel natural when I have a fight set in stone. So my anxiety is when I don't have a fight. Where are we going? Bradley James Clark. Why are Kiwi UFC fighters not being announced as coming from Aotearoa, New Zealand? I've tried encouraging guys like Luke Thomas, Ariel, etc. to add Aotearoa to our name, but no media interested. Yeah, I'm on board with that, Bradley James Clark. That's a good suggestion to me. I could kind of maybe see why the UFC, just because there's so many different countries of guys competing, that they've just made like a blanket call to name everything in the one language. But for those guys, Ariel, for those guys like Luke Thomas, next time I'm on their show, maybe I'll give them, well, I'll give them a little education as to the name of New Zealand, Aotearoa. That's what I'll get across the line. Thank you very much. Crystal Townsy, explain how you ended up backyard sparring with Ants Nansen, heavyweight king in the ring champ. Oh, that was that was a cool story behind that. We had a Christmas bash at my gym, so I was training at Strike Force out West Auckland, and we had a Christmas bash every single year. And it was the Christmas bash, and we invited Francis from Smack Gym and Ants Nansen. We had a tag team with me and my coach Aaron, and that's when that happened. I think that video's made the circuit a few times, but it's just a sparring session at the Christmas bash. And yeah, so we weren't in a ring. We would just pile up a bunch of crates, pile up a bunch of mats on top of that, and then everyone watching had to cram in right up to the ring, and they were our ropes for the ring. So if you come anywhere near the people, they'd push you back in. If you got knocked into the ropes or knocked into the people, it was their job to make sure you didn't fall off the mats and fall off the crates. I actually went to work after that. I was working as a doorman in Auckland down in the viaduct, and I went into work after that, and they're like, what's all over your forehead? What's all over you? And I had knuckle marks from the gloves from his knuckle. He hit like a truck. The knuckle was going like right into my forehead, and it left dots all over my forehead. So it was another one of maybe not my wisest, not many wise choices, to be honest. Elliot Ward, what do you enjoy most, training for a fight or training your students for theirs? And at what moment did you know this MMA is what you're going to do? Well, I'll answer the second part. I'll answer the second part of that first. At what moment didn't you? My first session, I went in, I trained, and I went home as I couldn't stop thinking about anything else. That's all I wanted to think about was training MMA. And I went back the next day, trained again, loved it again. But it was after that first session, I was like, well, looks like this is what I'm going to be doing with my life. And in terms of training, so the first half of your question, in terms of do I enjoy training for a fight or training your students? Well, training and fighting would be two different things. I love coaching. So I'd say I love coaching as much as I love training hard. I love them both. But nothing beats fighting. Nothing beats getting out there. There's no comparison in adrenaline. That's like doing something, watching something as opposed to doing something. The adrenaline's going to be nothing like getting out there and doing it for yourself. So if I had to say fighting would be head and shoulders above, just because I love everything about it. I love everything about competing. But coaching, that's coaching and training, that would be neck and neck for number 2. Okay, what else we got here? Sam Soprano Emery. How did it feel getting the first ever TKO stoppage for the UFC on New Zealand soil? I remember screaming my fucking head off at the Vector, then hearing you talking about needing to top up your phone to campaign Hangman for Japan in the post-fight. Yeah. No, that was awesome, man. That was awesome. Because I'd gone like, it was my UFC debut, but I just locked the blinders on. I only got the call for that fight like 4 or 5 weeks out before that all got announced and all came together, 4 or 5 weeks out before the fight. So there was no time to get any kind of nerves leading into it. I just put the blinders on, got so focused on my UFC debut. But man, after getting the win, looking around, hearing 10,000 of your hometown people erupt, there's really nothing like that. That was incredible. I'm glad you were there. And yeah, that's a true story. I was at the post-fight and I was going to start Hangman for Japan was going to be my hashtag because I wanted to get on the Roy Nelson, Mark Hunt undercard. I did get on that, but I was starting Hangman for Japan. After that, that was my campaign, but I didn't have enough credit on my phone. I didn't have enough credit on my phone to start the campaign yet. So I had to wait till my UFC paycheck came through. I could top up my phone. We started Hangman for Japan. I got on the card. That's another funny story because I got on that card, the Mark Hunt versus Roy Nelson. So that started there. I wanted to get on that Japan card to watch that live. I went over to Japan. I got in an absolute war in the first fight of the night with Maximo Blanco. I lost the decision, and I took a lot of shots in that fight. I had a lot of cuts over both eyes. Actually, both my eyes swole shut. So by the time Roy Nelson and Mark Hunt were fighting, I was sitting in the arena, and both my eyes had swollen shut. And I couldn't even watch the fight. So the whole reason I wanted to started Hangman for Japan was to watch that fight. I got over there, I fought, and I couldn't watch it because my eyes had swollen shut. So I was like watching the fight with my eyes closed, ripping a hot dog into small pieces that I could dissolve in my mouth. But hey, that's the game we play. Robbie Whiteman, when are you fighting again? This is good. Someone asked, let's get this. I would like to fight November, December. Definitely before the end of this year. I would like to get back in there. Definitely before the end of that year, you'll see me back in that cage. Liam Costello, are you interested in fighting at welterweight? I would fight at welterweight if the right matchup came up, but it's pretty easy for me to make lightweight. It's not a difficult cut for me whatsoever. Nick Snowden, discuss the benefits of getting kids into martial arts at a young age. That's a good question. And actually, my very first guest will be able to answer that next week. I'm having David Eagle. I'll talk about that a little later. But good question, Nick Snowden, because that's something that's probably the one aspect of developing the sport that I've had like the least hand in is how to develop the next generation of fighters. And that's something that needs to do. You don't see any professional sport or any world-renowned sport that doesn't develop youth. Every code develops youth. So it's something that we need to have a bit more of a discussion about. My next guest, stay tuned. I'll make that announcement a little later on. Joey Northwestern Clancy. Man, this is awesome. I'd quite like to hear the story of how you got involved with the boys from CKB from the beginning. Well, it's actually through my friend Jamie Vanderkool, who's passed away since, but he was training at City Kickboxing, and we started doing door work together. So we actually met each other on the doors, and because you hear so many people like they always talk, oh yeah, I'm a fighter too, and I've been through it a million times. And me and Jamie were both standing out on the doors, and I was like, oh yeah, sweet as, we'll get up tomorrow. I think it was a Friday night, and we'll get up tomorrow and do some hill sprints and then go spar. He got up in the morning. He was there to pick me up. We did hill sprints, and we trained every day ever since. And that was then I started going over and training at City Kickboxing with him. And then I was doing 10 a.m. MMA sessions leading up to my UFC debut. And Eugene Behrman, huge come out and was training with us out at our gym out west and coming in and training as a training partner. So I met Eugene. We were training together, but yeah, that was through my friend Jamie Vanderkool. Who are your top 5 Kiwi prospects? I feel like we'll spend plenty of time into that. We're moving on to the Instagram questions. So we just got the Facebook out of the way. We'll get through a couple of these Instagram questions. Wayne's, why wasn't a better name chosen for your podcast? Thank you. Cheers, Wayne. We got some ideas here. Hanging with Hangman. That's not bad. The Hooker Hour. I'm not too sure about that one. Again, Hanging with Hangman. The Gallows Podcast. Face Smashing Podcast. So there's a lot of good ideas. I think Hanging with Hangman would be the close second place. That makes a lot of sense. That does make a lot of sense. Face Smashing Podcast. That's a quality name though. If I call it, oh, did you hear the Face Smashing Podcast? Someone's going to go, oh, what's a Face Smashing Podcast? You're going to go, oh, that's Dan Hooker's podcast. So I'm saving you time. I'm saving a question. You can just go, did you hear Dan Hooker's podcast? And that makes the Dan Hooker Podcast is a no-frills name that cuts straight to the point. Thank you. However, Hanging with Hangman really is amazing. I'm happy with the name. I'm happy. I'm sticking to my guns. I'm happy with the name. Dan Hooker Podcast. It is what it is. In the famous words of Max Holloway, it is what it is. There's no need. What am I going to call it? The Green Room Podcast, the On Live Air Podcast. Oh, what's that? I was at Dan Hooker's. I'm saving you time. I'm saving you a question. Next question. I can't even say that. OMC Landsborough. What could you have improved on in rounds 3, 4, and 5 against Poirier? Not get as tired would be like a great start. Get less tired is the answer to that question. Oh, we got another suggestion. Should be called Hooked. Just a recommendation. Keep it up. I've explained this. J.boss.69. You only have a vocabulary of about 5 words. Can't see this being very interesting. Well, that's why there's only one episode with me by myself, and then I'm going to have more interesting people with greater vocabularies than myself on the show to join me. That will be the purpose. Where we go? It's Josh Bro. Any reason you stopped kicking in the Poirier fight? Seems super effective. Yeah, there's a real good reason. And that's my legs stopped working. So it's very difficult to kick when your legs don't work. Coach Mia 7. What non-MMA sports topics can be expected to feature and get discussed on the show? Farming, travel, and tech can be fresh breaks from the routine. Well, don't tune into the Dan Hooker podcast to hear me talking about farming. You don't see me walking around with a briefcase, because that's not what I do. That's not what I do. I fight, I coach. If it's about MMA, I'm extremely knowledgeable. Anything besides that, I'm sure there are plenty more. This might not be the podcast for you, my friend. Okay, we'll get a couple more. We'll get a couple more questions, and I'm going to wrap this bad boy up. Sean David NZ, would you ever consider a move up to weight class? It seems with your frame and height, you could possibly handle the extra weight, and perhaps it would positively affect your endurance. Is it something you've thought about? I feel like putting on weight, putting on muscle is not going to make it's not going to do a great job for extending my endurance. I feel like that would be a bad move. It's easy for me to make lightweight. I can make lightweight, we'll say a couple days. I'm going to be honest. It's going to take a couple days. Pancake Guru, how do you build that chin of yours? I'm not too sure. God bless me with a couple of things, and that's thick skin and a granite chin. I don't think you can train that at all. Oh, this is a good question to wrap the show. Dustin.J.Brewer, what are your thoughts on Chandler potentially coming over to the UFC? How do you think he matches up against both yourself and the rest of the 55 division? Well, I can speak for myself. I'd be interested to fight him. I'd be open to fight him. That's an interesting fight. Well, I asked, like, how long does he have to be in the USADA testing pool? Because if it's 4 months, like everyone's saying, that's not a fight I'm incredibly excited on waiting that long. But that's an exciting fight to me. He's a big name outside of the UFC. I would be definitely open to taking on that challenge. So to wrap up the show, I'm going to announce my next guest. So my guest for next week, and to answer the earlier question, will be David Eagle. Because he's a very insightful man about a part of the sport which I don't know a lot about, and that's developing youth. That's developing teenagers. That's developing the kids. And as I was saying earlier, there's no other professional code that doesn't have a youth program, that doesn't develop youth that is successful. And because he has an interesting take, because I've had a completely different introduction. I was 18 when I decided to do this, and at 18 you're an adult. You can make a grown-up decision to commit yourself to this sport. And so that's been my thing the whole time, and I jumped straight into professional. So mine was a adult and then straight into professional. So I've had a very different aspect to it, whereas a lot of people competing have come through martial arts as a child, as a kid, and developed. So I'm very interested to have a discussion with Dave and see his aspect. So he's the Oceania president of WACO, which is the World Kickboxing Association. And yeah, we're just going to be talking about developing pathways for the next generation, especially the amateur league and their goal of making this an Olympic sport. I can't say I'm the hugest fan of amateur MMA. Maybe he will open my eyes towards that. But that's episode 1 of the Dan Hooker podcast. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you join me next week with my man David Eagle, and we're discussing the growth and development of the sport that we love. Thank you very much.